Welcome back to a new episode of The Muckrakers, where we're sifting through the muck so you don't have to. We're finding the good in life, liberty, and hope. I'm your host, Justin Loop. Sitting right next to me is your co-host, Cindy Phillips. We have a lot to talk about, so let's go. Today's guest is Jonathan Hullihan, a native of Montgomery County, Texas. He graduated from New Caney High School and was awarded a football athletic scholarship to Texas State University, where he graduated with cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree, double majoring in political science and history. Jonathan then attended Loyola University College of Law, graduating with a Juris Doctorate, and was commissioned as a naval officer in the Navy. He served as a JAG for 13 years. And here he is today on the Muckrakers to talk to you about all the stuff that's going on in Montgomery County. Welcome back to Muckrakers. We have Mr. Hullihan here, and he's got some fantastic things to talk about. Don't you?
I do. Thanks for having me, Justin.
Absolutely. I am so excited to talk to you today. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Cindy, co-host, thank you for coming too.
Absolutely. I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, and Cindy's a great friend of mine. I've known her a while, so it's good to be in friendly company for sure.
Friends,
Absolutely. So, the reason why I bring you in is just to kind of find out what you got going on. I mean, you had your own law practice at one point in time, right? And at some point in time, you decided, you know what, I need to step up. I'm seeing a void here. There's some problems I'm seeing, and I want to actually serve my community. And so you ran for congressman. Mm-hmm. And it was a great run. You had a lot of really great talking points. I was very impressed. That didn't quite go the direction that you wanted to go. But you know what? That opened up a lot of other opportunities. And so I wanted to just kind of get into that.
Yeah, so I was in the Navy. I was a Navy JAG. And after active duty service, my wife wanted to get home to Texas and come back to where we grew up. She grew up the road in Rusk, and I grew up here. So we moved home. I was working at a law firm. Decided I wanted to run for Congress when Kevin Brady announced his retirement. And yeah, it didn't work out, but I made a lot of great friends, and I think I pushed the kind of intellectual discussion down the road a little bit, moved the ball down the field. I think at least we got some of the other candidates to talk about issues they may not have talked about if I weren't raising them. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a victory, and really just made a lot of great friends and found the Patriots in Montgomery County, and that's what I'm most blessed about, and really opened my eyes to the real process. Like, when I first decided to run for Congress, I had no idea what it was really like. I really believed that everybody had good intentions, and everybody in government were there to be leaders.
I'm laughing because I did the same thing.
Yeah, and to do the right thing.
Yeah, we all believe that.
Yeah.
And kind of seeing the business side of the politics, it was kind of discouraging, and then really coming to that realization that not everybody has good intentions. There are people running for Congress or running for office that are really just about themselves, and that was discouraging to me, because I think it's a higher calling, and it's a selfless thing to do to decide to run for office, because you put yourself through it and your family through it, and you just want change. You want positive change. You want to serve the country.
Yeah.
I've been watching the John Adams series again, if you've seen that.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's good. It's about the founding of the country, and it just. Where are these people that really want to pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to really, make the country better and get it back on track? And that was why I wanted to run for Congress. So after I was unsuccessful, I was going to go back to my firm, and I was kind of woken up to everything and came across this opportunity. The County Citizens Defending Freedom. They had heard about me. They'd seen me in the campaign. They're a 501c. 501c4 nonprofit out of Florida, and they said, hey, we need a general counsel in Texas, and we'd love for you to do it. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I hopped on there and really taken the ball and been running down the field ever since.
So what kind of work do they have you doing?
Well, we have three main branches. We have a election integrity branch, we have an education branch, and really a freedom branch. So it's really a general practice across the board. I'm supporting all the counties that are standing up where they have questions on, seeking election material through public information requests, really through on education initiatives. If they have questions on curriculum, the processes of getting information from the schools, and if they violated, certain statutes or acts or laws, it's really advising them on how to move forward on the legal side. And then at the end of the day, if all those things don't work, it's filing litigation. And at the end of the day, we're the law firm kind of branch of CCDF, and we're going to file litigation if we have to, because at the end of the day, a lot of these these government entities are just going to push you around until you have the force of kind of legal threat behind you. So I think that's the biggest benefit to working with CCDF and these organizations, is having the ability to file lawsuits or at least send letters on a legal letterhead. That makes a difference too.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting you say that, because one of the big things that when I was getting into muckrakers, is I kind of saw there's two areas that I felt needed to be fixed, and one of them was the legal side. It didn't seem like there was anybody that was able to go against or go up to hold up the rights of Texans. I always felt like that was something that somebody like Ken Paxton was supposed to do, but I noticed that he seems to be getting his hand tied behind his back a lot more than I would have thought. So I'm just saying, I think that's really good that we have legal representation from, I guess it's a nonprofit. Like you said, it's a 503c, so there's no real ill-begotten gains or any kind of, funny business there. You're actually just doing it because it's for the right reasons.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all the folks that work with CCDF are motivated. Their motivation is patriotism. The same with the lawyers I work with. I mean, we're not doing it to, we're not going to get a $5 million judgment suing Walmart or name your other Fortune 500 company. We're doing it, for we the people. We're doing it to push the envelope down the road and for liberty and for justice in the Constitution. So whenever we see a breach of liberty, we're going to use lawfare right back. I mean, the left has been using lawfare for a long time against constitutional conservatives and people that uphold the Constitution. So it's good to have those lawyers on the right side of the Constitution pushing back through lawfare as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the biggest benefit to in my opinion, of CCDF legal is, having these organizations that have the force of law behind them. So as these counties stand up, and these counties are ingrained in all the processes at their county commissioners court and their school boards, at the end of the day, they have legal backing, and they can pick up the phone and call a lawyer and not get an $800 bill at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, when you hire, and that was the biggest thing at the law firm. I mean, if you talk to anybody for a while, you have some correspondence, you do a few filings, all of a sudden you're sending them a $20,000 bill.
Yep.
So I think there's a huge benefit to, patriots from CCDF to have that ability to pick up the phone and call a lawyer.
It's good because, anytime, it's like what you were just saying, anytime I pick up the phone and talk to my lawyer, even on the phone, it's going to send me a bill, $800 just to chat with them about something just silly that I could probably look up on the internet. It seems like, I don't know, because I myself am not a lawyer, but I just feel like I probably should have just looked on something, DuckDuckGo, something to find what I needed. So I just stopped calling my lawyer because he's making more money than I am. So
well, I wouldn't tell anybody not to call their lawyer, but it does get expensive. When I was at the firm, I wouldn't, and they got mad at me, but I would no bill, no charge. A lot of those little phone calls, just because I just would. And I was always getting in trouble. Why did you no charge this?
Right.
I'm like, it took me 30 seconds.
Yeah. So this is a quick question. Well, you got to charge an hour because he.
Yes. Well, especially because I was working with all the, they really put me in the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates and protecting the doctors from their license. So I was really working with, teachers and they didn't have a lot of money and they were trying to fight the vaccine. So it was those kind of calls. It was nurses. So, and we were in new territory. So I was getting a lot of calls back and forth.
Right.
And I was finding when I would call them and say, hey, what's going on with this or that? They wouldn't answer because they're like, man, I'm going to get a bill from this. I would tell them up front, like, hey, I just need some answers. I'm not
Wow.
going to charge you for this call.
Right.
So, just out of curiosity, so now that you're at CCDF, are those the types of calls that you're still doing, or is the vision kind of changed?
Well, we don't really work in the medical liberty area as
Okay.
much. We do field some of that because the lawyer I work with mostly, his law firm is Jeff Childers. He does the Coffee and COVID blog.
Yeah.
So he's kind of nationally famous.
I'll post that too, by the way. That's a really good,
It is good.
newsletter.
Yeah, and he does it every day. So the firm is still handling a lot of that, but as far as me, I'm more only on the CCDF side of things. So he's handling. So if you have questions on vaccine mandates or mask mandates, things like that, you can always call the Childers Law Firm.
Okay, that's really good because a lot of our podcasts seem to be about the vaccine, and a lot of people are just asking the question, what can they do, where can they go, how they get legal representation, how they don't have no idea. So this will be good. I'll post that too.
Yeah, post it in the link because he
good.
does have a kind of a hospital go guide that he does, questions you need to ask when you're in the hospital, and they're trying.
Here on Muckrakers, we like to talk about life, liberty, and hope. We also like to promote other companies that push the life, liberty, and hope mantra. We have found a phenomenal company called Brave Books. Now, we love freedom, we love liberty, and we just found a way to teach our kids about freedom, liberty, and civics. Civics is something that we all have to do in order to protect these freedoms and liberties. Brave Book content includes puzzles, books, activities, and a lot more for your family to come together. They wholeheartedly support the family unit. And this is their way of protecting conservative values. Please go to bravebooks.us and use promo code Muckraker. Culture is coming. Are your kids ready? Join the club, bravebooks.us, promo code Muckraker.
That really woke me up on the legal side, working at the firm, seeing the ivermectin and the hydroxychloroquine issue, working with Dr. Emmanuel and some of other America's frontline doctors, just to see the tyranny, seeing the destruction of the doctor-patient relationship, seeing the administration and kind of the bureaucracy taking over what has traditionally been a relationship between the doctor and the patient. And that really bothered me. And just seeing the loss of liberty in our country across the board. I mean, we're losing our country. And to see the border situation. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah. So. Out of curiosity, there's quite a few documentaries, if you go out and look, of the various tyranny that's gone on, FDA, back in what, 08? Was that 08? You recall? Or was that 04? I forget. But
it's been going on for a while. You're talking about like for the farms and all
the
that?
Farmageddon. So I believe that was 08. And then, with the NIH, CDC, all these stuff, I mean, that goes back to the 60s. And my curiosity here for you is, or my question, I should say, is in your legal stance, how far have you been able to track this tyranny that's been going on?
Well, I think, in my opinion, it all started about 100 years ago with the rise of statism, the rise of, the elite class of politicians that believe that there should be this panel of experts, believe that, statism and the rise of the administrative state. And that's when we really started seeing the loss of liberty, because Congress didn't do their job. They abdicated a lot of their duties and responsibilities, and they allowed the rise of this administrative state, the bureaucracy, the rise of the bureaucracy. Yeah. I mean, it's the same time when, J. Edgar Hoover found the FBI out of the Department of Justice without congressional authorization. All of these things started appearing in about the 1920s and 30s, and it really started taking away authority from the states.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to really get back to the 10th Amendment, all powers not enumerated in the federal government are reserved to the states or the people. We need to get back to states fulfilling their traditional roles. And we've seen a movement in that direction with some recent Supreme Court cases.
That's true.
With the West Virginia case. And we need to get back to the states having all the authority that's not enumerated.
Roe v. Wade was another big one.
Yeah, Roe v. Wade.
Return it back to the states.
Return it back to the states. I mean, we are a republic.
Yes.
We are a sovereign within a sovereign.
Yeah.
So that's where we need to go, and that's where, I wasn't tracking it 100 years ago, but I can pinpoint it to about 100 years ago. And I think it could be swinging back the other direction, but it's going to be very difficult without good members of Congress that are willing to defund and descope these agencies.
That's right.
I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, the Department of Education was created in 1978 with Jimmy Carter in Congress. So the Congress did create the Department of Education. Now they're using the Department of Education through the spending clause and through Title IX to get into schools for transgender bathrooms and all these other issues. That's how they're doing it.
Right.
It's all through these federal agencies, through these federal regulations, and Congress needs to take it back. Even the border. I mean, every issue you can go back to the rise of the administrative state. The border, the only in Article 1 of the Constitution, I mean, the Congress has the authority for naturalization.
Yeah.
That's it. And the executive branch in Article 2 has taken that authority through Customs and Border Patrol and ICE and Homeland Security, and they're saying, no, we own all this immigration law. Well, actually, no, it's the Constitution in Article 1 says it's for Congress. So Congress needs to go back and be clear on those laws and really make it the border as a security issue and not an immigration issue as the executive branch has framed it.
I have two questions for you. Do you feel like what's going on is they're looking at this Constitution, they say, oh yeah, this is just words on a piece of paper, crumple it up, throw it away. Here's our actual law books that actually says these are the laws we're going to follow, which I'm not sure what laws the immigration thing would fall under. And then part two of this question is, has the president now become the king?
So to answer your first question, Title VIII is where all the immigration laws reside. And I think people are so lost in the bureaucracy at these federal regulations, the Code of Federal Regulations, the bureaucrats that are really calling the shots. Congress, for a long time, they have not been very specific with their intent. They give these very broad, overreaching kind of laws, and then they let the administrative state work it out. They let these bureaucrats and these SESs kind of figure out what that means. What is Congress's intent? And that gives them the latitude to really abuse the power. And that's why you have all these issues. Look, I'll give you an example. In 1972, they had the education amendments to the Civil Rights Act, and they talked about, for women to have, in Title IX, to have, equal rights to sports and scholarships and equal opportunity. They've taken, the Department of Education has taken that to mean transgenderism. Do you think Congress meant that in 1972?
No.
So where is the Congress? Why is Congress not pushing back? This all starts with the Congress. Article 1. The founders wrote the Congress in Article 1. They're meant to be the strongest branch. They have the power of the purse. They have all these authorities. The courts were meant to be the least powerful, Article 3. So we need to get, it all starts with strong members of Congress. And they're too interested in, raising money.
Insider trading.
Doing all these things, using it for their own fame and fortune. And they need to get back to the business at hand.
You have a good point, because you look at a Congress member, their term is up every 2 years. So they have to, as soon as they get elected, they're automatically starting to raise money as the day after they got elected, it seems like.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And
I agree.
With the McCain-Feingold election, kind of with the dark money, the 501c4 money that can come in. And I'm all about First Amendment. I'm all about people willing to give money. I mean, the First Amendment, campaign donation is an extension of your First Amendment. But it's just gotten out of control. all these super PACs can come in and choose candidates and spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Look, in my race, I'd raised a couple $100,000, and people were like, "Wow, that's a lot. You did really well." And I was like, "That's because of people like Cindy and just really grassroots people were writing me $20 checks, and that's how I raised that money."
Yeah.
But when other candidates can come in and have a $700,000 TV ad buy at the end of the race and just saturate the airways, how can somebody like me compete with that?
Exactly. Well, and the other part of that is, my understanding of a super PAC is you can basically hide your name. Nobody knows who's donating to the super PAC. The entire super PAC says, "Here's some huge chunk of money," but you don't know who that is.
That's true.
Like, for example, our favorite person, George Soros, could sit there and say, "Here, $1 million, boom."
Right.
And then that goes to somebody that's going against you because you're a stronger candidate.
Well, yeah, and you're not supposed to coordinate. Candidates can't coordinate with the PACs, but who knows? I never coordinated with any PACs, but I'm sure it occurs. And
well, how are you going to find out? How are you going to be? There's no paper trail. Really, I mean, I guess there is, but how? I don't. With the way that it's all hidden. Anyways, we're getting into some really deep.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the point is
speculation.
until we get good members of Congress, and they're like Chip Roy. I love Chip Roy.
Yeah.
He's a fighter, and I feel bad for Chip Roy. I mean, he's out there screaming at the top of his lungs all day.
Yes, he is every time.
And he just can't get any traction because he just doesn't have people willing to kind of believe the same things.
Yeah.
And I feel, I met with Chip Roy when I was in D.C. I met with Chip Roy as chief of staff, and I said, he was kind of staying out of the race, and I don't blame him. I mean, it's a very political race I was in. And I said, "You tell Chip, if I'm elected, I'm going to be his number one helper in Texas. I'm going to stand behind him. All the things that he cares about, I care about." And it didn't work out, but I'm hopeful that in the future we'll have more people like Chip Roy in the Texas delegation, and we'll be able to get things done.
There'll be other ways, I'm sure.
But that's the answer, in my opinion. It's through the Congress. The Congress has to take back their authority.
One of the things that we like to do at Muckrakers is to gain more knowledge. One way to do that is through books. However, we find that we're really busy a lot of the time. So we look to Audible. Audible allows you to listen to some of the latest and greatest books out there, as well as some of the older books, some of your favorite books. We also like to listen to periodicals, such as the Wall Street Journal. Audible has a selection of your favorite podcasters. It also has the Great Courses series so that you can learn just about anything you want, including history. If you want to learn more about history so that we don't repeat it, then get on Audible, listen to the Great Courses series. Please help support us by clicking on the link in the description.
I think that I agree with that.
And in the meantime, someone who's just looking at that and going, "But what do we do until we get there? What can we do locally? Is there any power in the local?"
Yeah, I think the most important thing that we can do, I'm kind of giving up on the federal government at this point, is look at your counties, and that's why I'm in CCDF. I think if we can retake each county across the country, then if you worry about your county, you can take back the country. So if you have good governance at your county level, your school board level, city council, whatever it is, then you can retake your local area. And if everybody focuses on that local area, then we can retake our country.
Speaking of that, I think the biggest issue that I've seen is accountability, right? Local governance is all fine and dandy, but without accountability, how can you hold people who break the law, like in this last election, how do you hold their feet to the fire? That's the problem I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's a problem. On one hand, it's good. So I won't go down a legal rabbit hole here. But, so in the state of Texas, the reason all the authorities at the county level, that's the way the Texas Constitution was written in 1878. It was post-Civil War era. They were very distrustful of a centralized government because they had just been living.
I wonder why.
But they had just been living through like a military governance, and post-Reconstruction, they wrote the Constitution in a way that gave all the power to the counties, even the Attorney General.
Oh wow!
So
that's why.
So the real reason why,
gotcha.
and look, and this has gotten me heat from the conservative circles, but in my opinion, you're either a constitutional conservative or you're not. You read the Constitution as it is, as an originalist. So our Texas Constitution has a separation of powers doctrine where the Attorney General can't just go into a county and look into things on his own. He has to have that authority in the Constitution, and he doesn't.
He doesn't.
All the law enforcement authority is at the county level.
I'm glad you brought that up because
Yes,
that's very contentious. You know, people are like, we know something's going on, but how come Ken can't get in there and check it out?
Because he has to be invited. The way the statutes are
Mm-hmm.
written, he has to be invited by the county attorney or the district attorney.
Yeah.
It's the only way the state can come in.
So, in your opinion, what can happen? Let's just take, for instance, like we know nothing's happening in Harris County because they're stellar, but let's just say that there were some nefarious things happening in say Harris County. Is there anything that surrounding counties can do to put pressure, or you just have to try your best to get new people voted in?
You just have to kind of try your best. I think what we should do, and this is a big lift, but you need to get a constitutional amendment on the next ballot. So you need to get
so that the AG can.
Yes.
Okay.
To give the AG the authority to independently. It's going to require a Texas constitutional amendment to get the AG to be able to come in and independently review and prosecute.
At the very least, review it, right, and bring it to
Yeah,
life.
and that's just a constitutional amendment to put on the ballot.
Yeah.
So I think everybody can call their local, local county, local state officials, the state house member, state senator, and try and get that on the next ballot.
Would that be like the county judge?
No. This would be for, Steve
State
Toad,
reps.
State
Brendan
reps,
Crichton,
senators.
and try and get enough support to get that on the ballot for a
For the
constitutional
88th
amendment.
legislation.
Yeah.
Could it get into starting in January, it could get into this legislation.
All right.
So
good.
it's going to be tough to do. There was an attempt in 2015, but it didn't make it. It requires a supermajority
Okay.
to get.
So we have an all call. Everybody call Steve Toth right now.
First
You
T.
say, yeah, I know.
And
right?
that's why I'm so.
Or your rep, whoever
Yeah.
represents you, yeah.
Yeah,
Look,
but Steve Toth's awesome.
Yeah, I would.
Not repping for him. I'm just letting you know. I'm very.
Yeah, no, I
Sorry.
agree.
So he's
Governor
good.
Abbott, I'm very concerned about that race, although I think he's pulling away. I'm more concerned about the Attorney General race
Mm-hmm.
because
That's true.
think about it.
Yes.
And I have a theory on this. Soros and those guys are backing his competitor in the Attorney General race. Think about what would happen if they had the Attorney General position.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know. That's a big one.
Because then in these huge counties like Harris County, Tarrant County, Dallas County, not Tarrant yet, Travis County, where they have these liberal Soros-backed DAs, they can invite the Attorney General's office in to investigate conservatives.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
For hate crimes or whatever they deem.
Right.
So they're going to use the power of the state to investigate whatever conservatives are left in those those counties.
Yeah.
That's number one concern. Number two concern would be they're not going to continue these lawsuits that Ken Paxton has been successful with some of these, the mask mandates and some other things that he has sued on behalf of Texas. And all those lawsuits are going to drop. So you're going to have a lot of problems there too.
I want to get your thoughts on the legal process, because my thought is, you could have some nefarious AGs that know they're going to lose, but they're still going to sue you. They could lose, but it's the process that actually where the recipient loses. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
What do you mean,
Like the legal process? Like, for example, say we have a nefarious AG and they're going after me for whatever reason. They just come up, oh, you did X wrong. I'm going to go after you. You're performing something business, so I'm going to sue you. I have to go through the process of getting my own lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to pay that lawyer tons of money just to show that, hey, I'm actually doing everything right by the books. And they attacked me because they're the state government.
But that's
that's
the problem with abuse, especially from like the IRS or anybody else. I mean, going through an audit, it's a great time and expense, and it costs you a lot. That's why, government should not. The people see what's going on where the government's abusing their powers, whether it's from Department of Justice. I mean, think about all the J6 people.
Right.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of folks caught up in that weren't even in the building; they were just near it, and they used their data to pinpoint them near the building. So it's really a rise of abuse from the state level and
Massive tyranny.
Yeah, and I really think anytime they use the power of the state to suppress opinion or thought or the First Amendment or, the right of association. I mean, it's one of the rights in the First Amendment, freedom of association. It's it's very unique in the United States of America and around the world to have this right to be able to associate and to be able to express an opinion. There's a reason it's in the First Amendment.
Right.
So what you've seen is the rise of the state using suppressing that right of free association, which is very concerning to me.
Well, and about Amendment number 4, where you have a right to your own effects, right? So now with this digital push, they're going to be able to track everything that you do. So it'd be really interesting to find out, because I can tell you, I feel like that's going to be a huge legal battle.
Yeah, I mean, the question is with the Fourth Amendment, if you have an expectation of privacy and whether or not it meets one of those exceptions to require a warrant. So, is data, do you have an expectation of privacy with your data? Well, not if you're checking all the boxes that say, go ahead and do whatever you want with my data. So that is a new emerging area.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, if they move to digital currency, you don't get that choice, right? They come in, they say, well, you have digital money. I can't remember what the federal, I forget what the name of it is. Let's just call it bit money. Bit money. So you have a certain amount of bit money that you've earned, right? You go over to Spring Guns and Ammo, I want to buy a gun. And then they say, well, your social score isn't up to par. You can't buy this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, first off, that is a huge infraction on the Fourth Amendment of your right to be able to choose. I mean, that's your personal property you're trying to transfer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think data is going to be a huge issue in the future. What we've seen, the government buys bulk data. And then they use that. Look at some of the cases you've seen with, and look, it's good at the end of the day, but it also comes with a price of liberty. You see these folks, that cold cases that have been closed 50 years, somebody goes to a genetic database. They're like, oh, I want to find out who my family is. And all of a sudden, they had left their DNA at a crime scene 50 years ago. The government is using those databases to find people, which in that case, look, I get it. But people need to understand the government can buy that data and use that to track you, find you, figure out where you're going to be. It's almost like the movie Minority Report.
That's what it's reminding you.
So, look, I think there's a lot of emerging issues with the rise of the government, kind of abusing their authority. And it's good. Again, the state needs to push back on that stuff.
Yes.
Because, look, police powers are reserved to the states.
That's right.
The FBI and all these federal criminal statutes in 18 U.S.C., that was all written by Congress.
I remind our sheriff on a daily basis, hello, I'm calling you.
Police powers, whether they're medical police powers, school powers, all those powers are with the state. Everything outside of that is extra constitutional, and it's either provided by statute through the Congress or whatnot. And what's happened is Congress has written a broad statute, and then you've let the bureaucracy in the statists kind of run with it.
You just made a light bulb turn on in my mind. There's a lot of hate going to our police officers and our sheriffs now. The way that some folks are presenting police, they're presenting them as people that abuse their power. And the light bulb that came off went on in my head was that they're purposefully making the police look bad so that the feds can step in. It seems like. I'm speculating, but I'd like to maybe push kind of a legal speculation on that. Does that sound?
Well, I mean, I think anytime they can, the feds can kind of step in and step into a space that they traditionally haven't had, it's just going to expand their power. So, again, who controls all that? Congress.
Right.
I mean, Congress is literally the key to saving this country. But it's just going to be so difficult to get enough good members of Congress. I mean, I think with Kevin McCarthy, he put out his America First kind of agenda. We'll see. I mean, the same people in Congress have been there for 20 years. We held the majority in the House and the Senate and the presidency in 2016.
And what did we do with it?
Nothing.
Yeah, the Republicans were fighting Trump every step of the way.
So I'm not
Every
holding my
step of the way.
breath
That
that
deep
anything's
state.
going to get done with this next Congress.
So
It's going to take a few cycles and a good executive that is willing to allow some of his agencies to get cut and working together.
Okay.
That's the way you fix it.
But in the meantime, don't you think it's about educating ourselves and each other about what our rights are? Because if you know what your rights are, and you know that, say for instance, that the FBI comes to your door, they don't have the right necessarily to just step in. The sheriff actually can override. Am I correct?
Yeah, so the way it should work is they have these task force stood up, and the FBI should contact the local sheriff and say we have a warrant,
Yeah.
and the sheriff should look at it, and they should go with them to execute any kind of warrant.
oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So that's how it should work. They should be communicating with the county and with the sheriff. So I think that's a good point to educate your county sheriff. I mean, if you have a problem with any federal warrants or anybody operating outside of the color of their authority, I mean, the sheriff needs to understand that.
Wow.
And we have a good sheriff
We
here.
do. We're very
He,
blessed.
he's a constitutionalist.
Mhm.
Yes.
I really like Sheriff Henderson. He takes
I
his
do too.
duties. He takes
Yes,
his
he
duties very,
does.
very, very serious.
He does.
And if we had those kind of sheriffs around the country, I think we'd be in a much better spot.
All right.
Absolutely.
And the sheriff is an elected position. So, number one, support your sheriffs. Number two, get sheriffs that are constitutional sheriffs.
Find out if they are.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And sometimes it may just be a case of educating them.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
When we heard, I know Jonathan and I were training together in Florida back in May for CCDF, and we were fortunate to hear from Sheriff Mack, and he said the same thing. He said things that he didn't know early in. He had to educate himself on the Constitution and educate himself on what was supposed to be happening. And once he did that, now he's educating other sheriffs.
That's awesome.
And it is. It's a great. And Sheriff, as he pointed out, Sheriff Henderson is one of his constitutional sheriff in his organization that he started. And,
Yeah, and these counties, I mean, not in Texas because, we weren't a state until 1836, but a lot of the old, in the Northeast, I mean, these county sheriffs were there before the federal government.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, the counties were there. The county sheriff was the law enforcement authority before, when we were during the time after we won our independence, when we were a Confederacy until the 1787, and then we obviously had the Constitutional Convention and became a constitutional republic. All those sheriffs predated that before the states
right.
decided to have a pact and create a federal government with enumerated powers.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
all of those things predate the federal government.
Yeah.
Right.
And they still stand true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They didn't
And people need
give
to
up their authority.
remember we are a sovereign within a sovereign.
That's great.
So we are a constitutional republic. What does that mean? We're a republic. It means that enumerated powers in the Constitution are enumerated to a limited government that is fixated on individual liberty and limited government.
That's right.
And when they operate outside of that, they're outside of their charter.
That's very
And
true.
knowledge is powerful. When
Yes.
you know that, because I know for myself, I didn't know this until very recently. And once I learned these things, it does. It changes your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You're willing to stand up and say, no, you don't have the right. You don't have to cower in fear against some tyrannical federal government. You know your power. You know your rights.
The biggest thing we need to do to fix this, in my opinion, besides elect good members of Congress, it's all related, is the spending clause. So we've used the spending clause, and it's getting worse. The spending clause in the Constitution, it's in Article 1, it really is a way that Congress entices states to highway funds, school funds.
Yes.
So it's basically bribery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So you do these things, you run your school lunch program this way, we'll give you this much money.
Yeah.
We need to elect local members,
Yeah.
House members of
Yeah.
the Texas Senate, that are willing to turn off that money. That's how we take back our
Yeah.
sovereignty.
Absolutely.
That is a big.
And most recently,
yeah,
weren't the
big
ARPA
carrot.
funds part of that?
Yeah,
kind of
ARPA.
thing? That's
Yeah.
huge.
In the CARES Act, so I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
In the CARES Act, with the COVID funds,
Mhm.
school districts that took that money
Mhm.
had to hire diversity officers.
Mhm.
They had to have social emotional learning officers
So much to do with COVID, wasn't it?
coming from the federal government. This was a requirement to your school district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
took that money, you had to hire those people.
Yeah.
And that was the federal government
Yeah.
going way outside their charter
Yeah.
as a federal government of a certain enumerated limited powers. they're now reaching into your school districts and saying, hey, Conroe ISD or whoever, hire a diversity officer because we're giving you this money.
Yeah.
So that is a huge issue people need to pay attention to, the spending clause.
Yeah.
So contact your congressman.
Yeah.
What's actually in this bill?
Yeah.
And then you have all the special interests coming in, stuffing in their stuff.
Yes.
Yep.
And then the
That's exactly
congressmen, they don't read it. They don't know.
No, they don't.
Because they have these omnibus bills.
Yeah.
Yes.
The most
So,
recent one.
We
that I
got to
heard
get rid of the
about-
omnibus too.
The most recent one I heard about, and I think it happens today is the 29th. Tomorrow, I think they vote supposedly on it tomorrow, and it has to do with the FDA. And the FDA now is going to have complete control over our vitamins and supplements now. Is what they were trying to do. They've
That's
got
true.
that embedded in, and
Yep.
if that happens, okay, well, what are you going to slide in that?
Yeah.
So
very
that's
true.
terrifying.
And
To me.
and like the OSHA mandates, all of those things. Like in Florida, Ron DeSantis
It's a mess.
is saying we're not going to participate in your OSHA program.
Well, and I think Texas needs to
Love
step
that.
up and do that too.
Yeah.
We have to. And
Yes.
I've told members of the Texas House this, you got to turn off the money.
Yes.
It's going to hurt.
Yeah.
We got to tighten our belts. But the
Yeah.
only way to get away from the federal government mandates is to get away from the money.
But I
But-
think Texas is very
Yes. I
self-sufficient.
was
They're
gonna say,
very
we have-
strong. The economy, if we could,
Yeah.
if Texas could just automate, I think our economy would be self-sustaining. We don't necessarily need federal funding. I don't.
And I
think.
agree. And look, Texas has been great. Like on Medicare and Medicaid expansion,
Yeah.
they haven't taken that money.
Yeah, you don't need.
So,
Good.
so there are things Texas is strong on. I'm just saying, moving forward, like
Yeah.
if we're really
Yeah.
going to reassert our sovereignty, we got to be willing to not
Shut
take
it
that
all off.
money,
Yeah, I agree.
especially
agree.
like with the schools and the school board money and all that stuff, all
Absolutely.
that federal money coming
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
that it influences your local politics,
Right.
which is
I
not how it's
agree.
meant to be.
So,
I
did you
agree.
answer the question that
Maybe.
Biden is now basically the perceived king?
Well, no, I do agree that
Yeah.
Biden is
He thinks
way
so.
outside his executive
Yeah.
authority.
Oh yeah.
Way outside his authority.
Yeah.
And he's weaponized the Department of Justice. He's weaponized federal agencies in a way that is unprecedented.
Yeah.
But
So,
don't,
yes, he is acting outside of his constitutional authority.
don't you think? I see it as a good thing because I think it's causing everybody to question and it's causing everybody to look and go, what is happening here? I know for myself, it's opened up a whole. I've been able to see now things that have been going on for a long time that we haven't been able to see. Now it's like it's all just, it's kind of ripped up with the curtain. And
Yeah.
you can kind of
Yeah.
see exactly what they've been doing all along, but now it's just kind of like hyped up on steroids.
Yeah, and they get very upset when you call them out,
Yeah.
Like-
yeah.
you know, but
But we have to.
people are waking up.
Yeah.
And I think that is our job as citizens is to call them out.
Yeah.
And we have
You
to
can't be afraid.
stand up and call them out, like by the thousands, by the millions. We need to stand up and call
Yeah.
them out.
Yeah, and the founders always said that as long as
Mhm.
we're a moral society, an
Yes.
engaged society, and an educated
That's it.
society, we'll
That's
keep
it.
our republic. But
Yeah.
And
once
I
we're
think those are the things that we've lost basis on.
Yes.
yeah, but
Time to get them back.
go watch the John Adams series. It's on
That sounds good.
it's on
I'll put that
HBO
link.
Max if you
Yes.
have that.
Okay.
But it really kind of reinvigorates you and really helps you appreciate what we have.
I'll
Mhm.
bet.
We are going to lose it
Yeah.
if we don't fix it.
I
If
agree.
we don't hold people accountable and operate within the law, but really hold people accountable, we're going to lose our country.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a great segue
Yes.
to giving you the last word on what folks can do to get involved. How can they help you? How can they contact you? What would you like to see people do to help out? Because it's a community thing. It's going to take all of us.
Yeah, I think just getting involved. I mean, from CCDF perspective, you can go to ccdfusa.com and you can sign up as an ambassador. You can get your local newsletter. We have a chapter in Montgomery County, Harris County, Dallas County, Tarrant County. They're springing up all over Texas. We're really active in Florida. So you can sign up there and find out more information, come to some meetings. We're going to have a series in Montgomery County, working with the executive director, Ms. Eckhart. We're going to have some trainings coming up on how to request government records and some other things that are really going to benefit the community to hold those folks accountable for transparency. And just get involved, be present.
Yeah.
Go to your school board meetings, ask those questions. Talk to your kid. Hey, what's going on in school? What are they teaching you in school? Go to your school board meetings. Go to your county commissioner meetings. If you can't go, watch it online and just be present. Ask those tough questions because, at the end of the day, it's a government of we the people.
Yeah.
So, they're gonna get away with what they can get away with if we're not holding them accountable. So, get involved. You can go to my Twitter. My Twitter is J Hullihan Texas. If you want to check it out there, I put some stuff out, and J Hullihan Texas for Facebook as well.
All right. Mr. Jonathan Hullihan, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you, Colonel.
Commander.
Commander, sorry. You go
Well,
yeah.
Well, thank you, Cindy and Justin, for having me on. I really appreciate that.
Hopefully you'll come back.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
You've been listening to the Muckrakers podcast. The Muckrakers, sifting through the muck to find the good, discussing life, liberty, and hope. Let us tell your story. The Muckrakers at protonmail.com, and make sure to visit us at www.themuckrakers.org.
Any views or opinions expressed by the guests on this podcast are solely their opinion and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Muckraker team.